guys, welcome to our 7th podcast. I think this is now Burnham Brothers podcast with myself, Luke, my son Cooper, and today we've probably got one of the most accomplished female grapplers ever. 7-time GI World Champion, 3-time ADCC Champion, including Absolute, IBJJF Hall of Fame inductee, Hannette Staack. Welcome to our podcast. Thank you so much for giving us the time.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor to be here with you guys, talking to you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So we'll get this one started with, how's life going in these crazy times that we're experiencing in the world with COVID? I gather you guys are the same as us. We, for myself here at our gym, we're only allowed to have kids contact, no adults contact, no, it's just craziness. And I'd imagine you guys are pretty much the same.
Yeah, we actually, they say like phase 4. So we just entered phase 4, which is minimal contact for martial art. Like we don't have like a specific category. That's like the kind of like the main problem we're facing. Jiu Jitsu doesn't have like it's included in martial arts, but for the state, it's almost they don't have anything written for martial arts. So we're kind of like having to follow the health clubs like guidelines mostly, which like it's doesn't make too much sense. But they now just included wrestling, so it's more similar to what we do. And they say like a wrestling, the governor just said like they are trying to push back again. Because we just started, we have like a minimal contact in the city, still like a kind of like a weird, because the city is like always more cases, but like for the suburbs, they allow you to have like some contact. So it will be like a designated partners for 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, then we'll see how it goes. So we're pretty much going like a 1 week. I would say like a 1 week at a time now, because before it was like a 1 day at a time. Now you can go like a 1 week at a time, see how it goes. But I feel like for us here, I don't know for you guys, but a lot of people are still afraid to come in. You know, a lot of people are still like are not comfortable coming back to the class, which is understandable. But we'll see like, you know, we'll see like in the next couple of weeks how it's going to be. But I'm at least happy that we're moving a little bit. Yeah.
And that's a lot like what it's like for us in our gym. Like Cooper lives in Melbourne. And they're in a pretty hard lockdown at the moment. He's not allowed to train at all. Their gym's shut. Whereas myself, I'm in the country. We're sort of 6 hours from Melbourne. We haven't had a case here for over 3 months, but we're in the same sort of, my gym's open. Kids can train, but adults can only do solo drills and
yeah.
Hard. I mean,
I know.
It was so good actually doing something, but yeah.
It's hard when you mention like the guidelines the government give you. Jiu-Jitsu is like so popular, but still it's not like that, like really like everyone knows it. So like you have to kind of like follow, like for us we have to follow some like judo guidelines or something like that. Wrestling isn't
exactly.
It's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
No one really understands Jiu-Jitsu. You don't really know what guidelines to follow.
Exactly, and it makes confusing for everybody, like especially for the students, because they don't feel comfortable. It's like, and like being honest, like even we take all the measurements, we do like we follow all the state and like the city guidelines. We still don't know if it's going to be enough to not spread the virus. So we just have to hope that we're doing like our best. And I mean, like if you think about, I feel like there's more people that will come out sick after this. Like a lot of like our students here, they don't feel comfortable because sometimes they don't have the space to do like the Zoom classes. And like sometimes like it is kind of like because when you sign up for a jiu-jitsu class, you sign up for like the whole adventure, right? You sign up to go there to like be like you know, with together, right? And then once you have this, I know like we know we have to work with what we have. But at the same time, it's challenging for people, you know, who doesn't have like don't have the motivation to come and like or to work out at home. So kind of like
And that's what we found. We found that when we had our first lockdown up here, that we were doing Zoom classes and stuff, and they were full for the first week. And then it slowly started going, nah.
Exactly like this. And you know, we'll keep motivating people to come, but you have to understand that you know, and like us, like, you know, like the weeks is like ups and downs. Sometimes you can accomplish a lot in 1 week, in 1 day, and sometimes like it's just the whole week feels like, oh man, I can, you know, I don't have the motivation to do anything. And it's like, you know, if that's what I told like the ladies here today after the class, because this week for me was like a week that was like a little bit stressed out, because the governor just like sent new guidelines that probably will be you know, like in working like soon. So like it's pushing back again. So I was kind of like anxious because, you know, like how long more. But I understand we have to take 1 day at a time. But I feel like, you know, our job is also like push ourselves, like each other, you know, like just, you know, not give up on those times.
Yeah, I think it's just the uncertainty that no one knows what's going on. No one knows how to fix this problem, and to run a business, to run a gym, it's just so hard.
Yeah. Odd times for business owners. Owners.
Fun games. So what was it like? Tell us about growing up for you in Brazil, I would imagine. How was that? How was life for you growing up?
So I was always like involved with sports. I never had to go through any like I had like some hard time like in the beginning. I mean, like my parents were like divorcing, and then there was a time where we kind of like had just minimal to live. But I can't, like, you know, honestly, I can't complain, because I was always like fortunate to have like a place to be home. You know, I always had food. I always had like the support of like both my parents, even though like they were separate. But I had like the support from them, so I was able to go to school. I was always involved with sports, which is like a kind of like I resisted a little bit to not like follow the you know, like the sports, because I want, like, you know, I want to be more, I want to do more. But life like brought me into like this way. I always say like this because I always loved sports. And when I started doing jiu-jitsu, the first time I went to a jiu-jitsu class was like back in 1997. And I remember there was like no other women at the school at the time. And a friend of mine, I used to do like a rock climbing. He's like, oh, I think you know, you should try this because you have good grips, and jiu-jitsu is all about like, you know, there's a lot of gripping. So I think you like, and I went to a class, and then I just like I fell in love, and I was like, wow, like you know, like I saw like this small guy really, you know, kind of like doing like a lot of things with the big guys, and I'm like, wow, like and he was like a little bit advanced. So it was kind of like empowered by the sport, because I like, wow, like this guy is like a small guy and he can do so good against a big guy. So, and then I just like decided to continue from there. But pretty much because I was always involved with sports, I think like you know, life kind of like brought me this way. But I can't complain about like, you know, I never had to go, like I had to work from the beginning, you know, like but I feel like it's like everybody's life. So nothing to be you know, too different.
Yeah,
it's cool. You were empowered by that, because, you know, a lot of people say that's like the whole idea of jiu-jitsu, the smaller person can beat the bigger person. So that's cool.
Yeah, and at the time, because like there was like no other women, so like a training, so it's pretty much like you know, why are you going to do this? But I think like, you know, like I got like inspired by, okay, if like this small guy can do, like maybe like I can do, I have a shot to, you know. So, and was kind of like love at first sight, like a first day, and I was like just amazed by like the efficiency of the sport.
It is. It's funny that experiences like that happen, because I know before I was even training, I took Cooper to a seminar, and it was a Michelle Nicolini seminar. And
wow.
After the class, or after the seminar, they rolled a few times. And I remember this guy who was a blue belt, he would have been probably 120 kilos, and Michelle rolled with him, and he was going as hard as he could. And Michelle was just sort of smiling through it. And just
oh my goodness.
With him, I'm just going, holy cow, this is ridiculous.
Yes.
And that's what got me sort of sucked, and I'm going, this is unreal.
Right, exactly. When you see like you know, like how efficient it is, like you just yeah, it's like you know, you can't deny. It's like something you see there. Like it's very efficient, very like it works.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. So what age were you then when you got into jiu-jitsu?
So I started like as 18 years old. So I'm 41 now. 23 years almost. Like it will be 23 years in the end of this year.
I thought you were only 21, by the way.
Yes. Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. It's our secret.
We'll cut this part from the podcast. Don't worry.
No, I don't mind. Like, I mean, like a jiu-jitsu keeps me healthy. Like you see, like as a 41, I, you know, like a, not like a making a comparison, but kind of like a making a comparison to like a someone, like, you know, some of my friends that never done anything like, but I feel like jiu-jitsu is like one of the sports that keeps you healthy, because not only physically, but mentally as well, because you have to think about, like, it's not a sport that you just like, you know, it's mechanical, like, you know, like all the, if you learn like some moves, you learn like the concept of the sport. Jiu-jitsu is like a, you know, completely the opposite. You have like so many concepts, so many positions, and you can connect so many things. So you constantly like thinking, so you working with your, you know, your mind as well. So that's like, I'm definitely like, I definitely feel like I feel, it's like, it keeps us younger.
Oh, for sure.
For sure. Right?
Watching your, like the stuff you put on Instagram and stuff, you don't.
Right.
Like you're 41.
I think,
right. Thank you.
The other cool thing about jiu-jitsu is like, you can choose the pace you want to go at. If you want to go slower, you can do more pressure, things like that, or use more lasso and things like to control the pace. Like I'm pretty fast, but probably in like 20 years, like I don't want to be fast anymore. So you can change the pace. And I feel like whatever age you are, you can do jiu-jitsu, you just modify the style and like you can stay healthy and it's good.
That's very true. I feel like the same way. And actually today I was like thinking about this, because I do like, I always like, I like a lot to like do drills and to be involved with you know, like a learning. I'm always like that's for me is like you know, the way I keep my mind always like learning new things in jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. I always like to do drills, and from the drills, sometimes we stop and we think about like some moves, but it definitely like is like a sport that, you know, you can practice from, you know, like a very young age to like, you know, like it doesn't have like a age limit, as long as you, you know, you're doing for fun, you're doing for your mind, for your body. If, like, of course, if you're doing for a competition purpose, that's a little different, because then, you know, you have to take your body to the limit, right? But if you're just doing for the sport, what the sport, like, because the sport gives you so much to work with.
Yeah,
it's like the competition is like a very small part of the sport, but if you think about like the overall benefits of jiu-jitsu, it goes like a way beyond, you know, like the competition. The competition is like just like a small part that will make it maybe like, you know, challenge you a little more, like if you want like the challenge of like the, let's say, the mindset of like going to a competition, not giving up, like, you know, the pressure you face during the competition. But you also have like the other side, like you have the self-defense, the empowerment of the sport. Like whenever you do, you feel like a man, like I said, like when I did my first class, I was like, wow, you know, like if this guy can do this, and, you know, like I'm a woman. And I was like, I remember like, because like old school, our school, like my first professor, every Friday, it was my favorite class. We had we called like a taparia, which is kind of like a MMA style. So it's like a Friday was like awesome. We closed the doors and was just like a slapping. And man, I remember like a train with those guys. I talked with one of my friends. He's living actually in Australia too. And I was like talking to him, and I was like, remember Hannette, like how much like we used to like, you know, beat each other up. But it was a way, like, you know, it didn't matter. I was a woman, but it didn't matter, because at the time we were like, you know, pretty much one thing. So it really like makes you like, you know, empowered by this like aspect of like, you know, there's no age. If you can practice like to a competition mode, you can practice to keep you in shape. You can practice to learn to defend yourself. Yeah, I would say like when I start talking about jiu-jitsu, I like just keep going, but you know, it's
that's good. That's what since we've started doing this podcast, that's the part I love, is to see people like yourself, and they're still so passionate about it after training for, like you said, 20, 21 years, whatever it's been. but just when you start talking, you can see the passion, and it's unreal.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's great about jiu-jitsu, because it never gets boring from my point.
That's true. Yeah.
You're always learning. And it's so funny you say that about that Friday comp, because we did a podcast with Jean-J Ribeiro, and he had the same thing, and that was his favorite day too.
Yes.
Basically belting the crap out of each other on a Friday.
Right. It was so much fun. Oh my goodness. I told my training partner here, we're doing the drills. I told Friday we do a no gi. It's a designated Friday for no gi, and we do takedowns. We do we get sweaty on the mats. It's similar. So I brought my gloves. I was okay, so let's train some boxing, and then I'm putting him into the taparia style mode.
That's scary.
That's scary.
You got a question, Coop?
Yes. Next question. So with the way the sport's heading in, like with jiu-jitsu, do you like the direction it's heading in? I know it's a bit hard right now because the sport's kind of enduring something it never has before, like a pandemic, and it's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
But even considering before that, did you like the way jiu-jitsu's heading, with the styles that are in the in the mainly competitions? Do you like that? How's it changed for you?
I like so for example I'm forward to other styles of techniques. So for example, I'm not only in favor of the IBJJF rules. I also like, for example, heel hooks, and since I said, because I came from a different generation, and at the time I started training, I had this guy who was he was one of my mentors, and I carry him on my heart always, because he was the person who introduced me to my professor that took my career to the next level. But he was the first, also the first one who believed in my game and said one day you'll be a world champion. But he was every day he will come to class, and he will be teaching me foot locks, leg locks as a white belt. So I had the privilege of learning from the very beginning, all these things, because when we rode at the time, it didn't matter, there was not, we had to learn for the knowledge, and because the competitions were kind of the main competitions for me, there weren't many competitions. So we end up learning everything. So, but now you see, you go to IBJJF, the only thing that bothers me on the IBJJF is because the jiu-jitsu rules, they are so complex, they're so complicated. And I feel sometimes instead of making easier to understand, they make it a little bit harder for people to understand.
Yeah.
So for example, there's my partner here, he was he was one of the referees, head referees for the IBJJF. And I remember having a big argument with him. It's man, the guy was on the bottom. He he grabbed the guy's leg, he went to the top. 2 points, simple. And it's no, it's and he will try to explain. I'm that doesn't make sense. On the bottom, take the leg, top, the 2 points. So I feel sometimes instead of making easier for people to understand, they make it a little bit harder.
Yeah.
And I understand, because they kind of have to make it, it's still, let's say, technical. So in their mind, maybe otherwise it would be maybe using too much strength or something like this. But I mean, there's some things that would be much easier for people to do. For example, when you lock someone on a 50-50, now they have a 50-50 and lapel together. And look, like I said, I'm a person that tries everything. I see a new technique, I'm let's try this, because I want to see how it feels. I want to see if I can do something to escape. Yep. And this guy, I saw a match. The guy put this guy in 50-50, and he wraps his lapel on the guy's on his leg and holds. And I said okay, Vini, put me in this position. Let me try to escape. I'm I can't. There's no way. If the person is holding this position, there's no way I can escape without like, you know, doing something like a heel hook, for example.
Yep.
So I feel like, you know, some positions, they should think about like because let's say as a black belt level, for me, it's like this. If you're in the black belt level, everything should be allowed.
Yep.
Like, of course, some things like, let's say, neck crank, the slam, I don't see like the use for this. So, you know, like, like maybe like let's leave this out. But for example, heel hook, if you're a black belt, and this is a technique I understand will hurt a lot of people, but you're a black belt. You should know how to defend.
Yeah.
And that's like how you see like the deficiency, like of like our top players when you see them performing on, for example, ADCC, you know, you see a lack of defenses for heel hooks, or leg locks, or leg attacks. You know, and that's like that's how I feel where like, you know, like we could improve our rules in the jiu-jitsu world. But I like the direction is going with more tournaments, like paying money for the athletes. I still feel like there's like just like a little incentive for the women community. You know, I think like, you know, especially talking for myself, like I feel like, you know, like you almost have sometimes to beg for people to invite you to go. Because, oh, like, you know, like a Hannette, she's like a 7-time world champion. Maybe she's going to ask for like too much money. I don't know what's like you know, like a deal. But in my mind, like I worked so hard to get to the, you know, to the level I am. And for me to accept a match, I love to fight. I love, like, you know, like I fight for free. But of course, it took like me years to build what I have today, and to accept a match. I think it should be like, you know, at least like they should value what we bring into the match. But I feel like, you know, like the incentive for the guys is much bigger. And I see like the progress for the women community as well. We're growing in the sport. We have more women practicing. We have more competitions. Like you see more women in the competitions. Just recently, in 2011, I had a conversation with the guy from IBJJF. And I was asking him, like, in a Pan Americans, I was like, Andrea, how come you guys don't have master division for women? Like, I was only adults, like, you know, blue belts and above, like, there was no master division. I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And in 2011 was like the year they opened the master division for women. So small, you know, changes, like we see like the progress is progressing. We see like it's moving forward, but the comparison, and maybe because there's still like more money in the men's, because there's more practitioners. But I also feel like sometimes like people avoid, you know, like because it's easier just to have like the guys, like the guy gets more attention. But I also feel like, you know, like there's a lot of they're missing a lot, because there's a lot of now exciting fighters. Fionn from like, you know, like Europe. There's a lot of exciting matches you can see for the women community. But I definitely feel like it's progressing, like things are getting better. Now with the pandemic, a little bit crazy. But I feel like, you know, in the future, maybe we will have like a chance, like, you know, a chance to go to the Olympics. Maybe one day I'll see like this sport on the Olympics, right? Who knows?
I hope so. And that's
right.
It's so true, though, what you say about the women in jiu-jitsu, because if there is a sport anywhere where the incentives for women or men should be exactly the same, it's jiu-jitsu. Because you play to the same rule set, the same times, the same everything. It's not like, you know, for argument's sake, you hear a lot of people complain about tennis because men play 5 sets, women play 3. Blah, blah. In jiu-jitsu, it's all the same. So women should get the same as men. It shouldn't matter. And to me, like I actually prefer to watch black belt women fight, because I find them more technical. I find their matches more exciting. I find a lot of the men stall. So yeah, I think it's weird. I don't know why they don't, and I don't know why a lot of these big cards don't have more women fighting on them.
Yeah. And you know, look, you said something very interesting, because that's like that's for me, like, because I hear sometimes people say like, oh, you know, and believe me, I heard this from from people that you won't believe, like, you know, because if you think about jiu-jitsu, what jiu-jitsu is an art where a smaller person, jiu-jitsu was created for a smaller person, let's say putting a self-defense aspect, the person on the street, a smaller person will be able to defend himself or herself against a bigger opponent.
Yeah.
And maybe even dominate the other person because the jiu-jitsu gives you this power, right?
Yep.
But, and when I hear people saying like, you know, oh, you can learn from a woman, oh, like a woman, like it's like, for me, it's nonsense, because when you train, I said, like, I always invite, like, okay, so you think it's like easy to train with like a woman? I invite you to come to my school and even like, you know, I invite you to come to my school and train with me, because, you know, I still can give a hell of a fight here. But for me, it's like it's almost like it's not thinking right, because if jiu-jitsu was made for a smaller person to defend themselves against a bigger person, you know, a woman practicing jiu-jitsu will be maybe even more dangerous than a guy.
I think
I'll tell you why, right? I tell you why, because women, we're like, from our perspective, we're not like, we don't think we are strong. And if we knew about this, we're going to, like, you know, get much further. But most of the time when I get women here, they're like, oh, you know, I'm not like strong enough. And once like they, you know, they go to the mat and they see like what they can do, it's like, oh my God, I didn't know I could do this. But like, let's say for women, because they don't rely as much on strength, they rely on technique. So they really have to get their technique better in order to train with the guys. So like, you know, like they will be used to get smashed, and they will like just there, you know, like I have like two students here, two of my black belts. They are very good guard players. One is in Croatia right now. She's living in Croatia. And both of them like won like a world championships, like one as a brown belt, the other one as a purple, but very, very technical and very good guard players. And all the guys that train with them, they start kind of like, you know, that's going to be easy. And once they get into their game, they're like, oh man, I have to like get rid of this leg somehow. Yeah. But you see, like a lot of people underestimate the power of, because then you're mixing two things: technique, refined technique, you know, like the resilience, because like the person is used to get smashed, like, you know, being like a defense, like, you know, once they have a chance to get to go on you, like they will go 100% for sure. So, you know,
so true. And
that's the power of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and generally, a lot of the girls are training with bigger men, so they have to work on their technique and to get those, to be able to cope with those bigger men when they're learning. And that's why I find that generally women's jiu-jitsu is more technical to watch.
Right. Yeah. Many times I feel like it's the same. Like you see like a lot of the guys, like even the smaller guys, like now the fights are so, you know, like this, like they don't even like a move, or sometimes you see like a lot of like a moving, but just like, you know, those positions, like you know, I feel like women, because we don't have a chance to go with people like with the same, like we have less women than men at the, you know, like less women at the school, most of the schools. And I know here we have like a good group of women, but still you train more with the guys than with the girls. Yeah. And you know, it's just like it's just amazing how, you know, how far you can go.
Yeah, for sure.
Going back on what you said about the rule set, it's funny you mentioned about the 50-50 with the lapel wrap, because Janji was actually complaining about that as well.
Oh, really?
He hates the position. He went on a big rant about it. And I told him about Pan Americans last year when I was purple belt. My second fight, the guy put me 50-50, wrapped my leg.
Oh my goodness!
The whole fight. And it's impossible. Like for me, I find worm guards really hard to escape, especially when they tuck the lapel in. I can't escape the worm guard very easily. Then when you put 50-50 in as well, which is also hard, I feel like I can't do anything. And then the guy.
And what's your belt now?
Brown. I got brown end of last year.
Brown. So now you can do toe holds at least. Like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I got in the fight and the guy held me there, and he won the fight because he was controlling me, and I couldn't do anything. You know, I was stuck there. I'm more experienced now, because after that fight, I work on 50-50 escapes and everything. But would be handy to be able to put on a heel hook from that position, because it's so frustrating to be stuck there.
Exactly. And if you're like, you know, like a brown and black belt, let's say, that's the thing, like, you know, like the old school mentality, you had to learn everything. You know, this guy, he took me like this guy who like in Brazil who was kind of like my mentor. He passed away. He was kind of like a old school guy. At the time, he was like a 7th degree black belt, going to his 8th degree. So he was already like, you know, older in the sport. He took me to like a Niterói, which is like, you know, still like in the state of Rio de Janeiro, but like another city, to a guy's house. And this guy, his name was Tarcísio. And I never heard about the guy before. But this was one of the guys who used to fight for the Gracie family, because they had like a kind of like the Gracie family, like a Gracie, someone like a Gracie fighter versus like, you know, some Fada, which is like the other lineage. Yeah. Or like they would have like a kind of like these challenges, like a Jiu-Jitsu versus like a Judo. Yeah. And he actually fought for the Gracie family, and we were like there, and we like had a lunch, and then we were watching kind of like old videos. And I was like amazed by like, you know, like the techniques they were doing, you know, like on the videos, like, man, this is kind of like, you know, like what we do today. So, but, you know, like sometimes like this, like things get lost because we're so focused on the new, on doing like a defensive technique. And we forget about like, but that's what I'm saying. If we, from the beginning, we set like the rules. Okay, so when you get to the black belt or to the brown belt, you're going to start doing this. I think you kind of like it's like the leg lock and the toe holds. When you get to when you're in your purple belt, going to your brown belt, you already like, you know, in your mind, you kind of like getting ready for people attacking your foot, you know, like it's a process. And then when you're like as a brown belt, then you kind of like more aware, and then as a black belt you're like okay, you should be better. But that's the problem about like today, people, you know, they just don't practice those things anymore. And I mean, like if we incorporate this back, you know, as a way to prevent people from stalling, because jiu-jitsu is really about like a submission, you know. So if we create like a rule that will be like a less stalling and more submission, I would go for it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe even
it's very boring. Like, you know, like I hate this kind of like a game, like and maybe like that's why sometimes like, you know, I lose the the match, because I'm like just like I want to like do my game. Don't let the person grab anything, you know, like that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe even you know, like I think the rule set, they've slowly added more and more rules, restricting a lot of things, and pushing the, like, especially with IBJJF rules, pushing it more for points. Could be handy, you know, if you could get 1 point for a close submission attempt rather than an advantage. You know, it's going to push people.
That's actually a good idea. Yeah.
You know, some people, or even myself, actually, I'm a pretty heavy point fighter, and I wish I did go for more submissions, but it's like, oh, I don't want to lose the position. And, you know, if there was more of an incentive to go for submissions, or even something I would prefer, you know, if there was an extra point to go for a takedown, give people more incentive to go for takedown instead of get a lot of double guard.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm assuming as well you would you'd be in favor, if you want to do obviously heel hooks in gi and things like that, you'd be in favor for reaping obviously as well, right?
Yeah, I don't see any point on the reaping. Like honestly, when I'm training here, and like sometimes I look, it's like, am I reaping? And it's like, no, you're fine. Yeah. I'm like, I don't see, like, you know, it's just like jiu-jitsu. Sometimes you get into crazy positions. I don't see like the point, like any point of like the reaping. Like, you know, it's just those like things like I think like that brings the sport back, you know, like prevents the sport from growing more. The sport could be on TV, could be like much bigger, but I think like those things, because no one wants to watch a 10-minute match that the guy puts like, you know, 50-50 lapel, and both are like, there's like dogs like with the legs, like, you know, like, like, man, what is this? No one can move, no one can do anything, you know, like what's the point?
No, that's right. That's true. I think that's what holds it back from getting bigger. Like it's grown a lot, but it's, yeah, it's that next level that it needs to get rid of all that boring.
Make it more.
Yeah, that's why like I like the submission only matches as well, because I feel like, you know, people, you know, like you have, or the ADCC style where you have like the first like a 5 minutes no points, and then the next 5 minutes points for the general.
I like that style, the no points then points.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty fair.
right? Because then you can actually like, you know, at least fight for the, you know, submission in the beginning, or like, you know,
Yeah.
it's like a two-way street as well, because like maybe you can use the first 5 minutes just to like stall a little bit, and then like, you know, try to win the points after. But at least I feel like, you know, like on those like the next 5 minutes you have to fight, because you know, otherwise like there's no points before. So like those like the next 5 minutes, man, you have to give everything. So that might be like a good setup for the matches as well.
The rule set is good for people who both like sub only and people who play more points. You know, you can get a bit of both in there, which is nice.
Do you so you've won so many major comps. Do you have a favorite one out of all of them?
I do actually. I have like I would say like a one gi and one no gi. The no gi one, I would say like for me, like, because of course the gi has a special meaning for me, because it's like the first thing I came for. But I feel like the ADCC was like the biggest one, just because I was like so many things that happened before, and I lost like the previous one. I could not compete on the open class, and in 2007, kind of like because I had like a lot of troubles to get into the ADCC in 2005, because it was only by invitation. So people were invited to compete. I got an invitation, but then they tried to take my invitation away to invite someone else. I got my visa denied. They put me in a hotel, like my first, like before my match, they put me in a hotel room with my first competitor.
Really?
Yes. And the worst part, look, and Cooper, the worst part is like she was so nice. And I was like, I want to feel like, you know, I want to feel angry with you. I want to like, you know, I want to be ready to kill you tomorrow, but I can't. You know, she was helping me. She was like asking, like, do you need anything? I was like, don't talk to me. My goodness. It was so much after that, before that competition. So, and I did my first match, and we used to like compete in wrestling together. And I knew like my good shot was like I had like a good double leg, and I could get my double leg on her. That was like how we like kind of like, you know, our matches. But then I tried to do a double leg on her. She defended, and the whole match was me on the bottom in the guard, and she was on top, just like you know, holding the position. I was like, I felt so frustrated that tournament. I was like, you know, I trained so hard. Like my last circuit was like 100 minutes training, like, you know, after like a sweating, like all the vibration. I was like, man, but I lost in my first match. But for me, I didn't take as, of course, I was very upset, and, you know, no one likes to lose, even though they can say like, you know, it's okay, but no one likes to lose.
No.
But it was good because I came back for the next one hungrier, you know, like I was hungry for the next one. I actually did the trials in Brazil instead of like just waiting for an invitation. I did the trials in Brazil. I won the trials in Brazil. I did like a flying umber on the trials as well. So, and I was like trying to do like practicing a lot this movement. And the reason why it was so special, like the 2007 edition, was one, because, you know, I lost the previous one, and I was like, you know, hungry to come back. I came to United States with the intention of staying after the competition, and I didn't know how it's going to be. So I came with zero money, no money at all, to stay in the United States. And my partner like sold his motorcycle in Brazil. So he got like $3,000, and that's how he came to United States.
Yeah.
So like, okay, so we're like planning to stay and see how it goes. But I put like the tournament, that was like, I put like the motto for me was like glory, like it was a glory or martyr. So I would win or I would die. It was something like a dramatic like this, and I will explain why. It was like, you know, almost like, okay, my plate of food is inside of that match. If I don't win, I don't eat.
Yeah.
You know, like, because if I don't win, I will go back, you know, or like I will stay and try to like, you know, work with what we have. But it was like so much, you know, like I put so much after like losing like the tournament. I asked like the promoter of the event to compete in the open class, and he said like no, not this time, maybe next time. So I felt like in 2007 I had to do everything, you know, like to show what I came for, because 2005 I told the guys like, man, I have so much more to do. I can do better than this, you know, like just give me another chance. And he's like, no, maybe next time. And it was good, you know, like at the time. I didn't understand at the time, but it was important for me to come back hungrier, you know, like to come back like focused and determined for like a 2007.
Yeah.
So 2007 I came, was completely different story. Like won like the open class, my division. I got no points scored against me the whole competition. Like no one scored any points on the competition. So it was like a perfect competition.
Wow.
Perfect competition. And being able to win like the finals of the tournament with the Flying Amber, you know,
That's really
it was
bad.
just like, exactly. It was really the full accomplishment of my work, because that became kind of,
final.
Yeah.
right.
That
Became
is
kind of like my,
ridiculous.
the trademark, right? Like but also like, you know, a position that I trained like so many times, like you know, and just like being able to, you know, bring the technique and win like this way was kind of like the best, I would say, like the biggest accomplishment of my career, I feel, even though it was without the gi.
Yeah.
And I would say like I would mention this one as the main one. But I would say like the second most important one, or maybe like the first because it came before, it was like in 2004. Because 2004, in the past, when I first did my first Worlds, 2002 was my first Worlds as a purple belt. But at the time for the women's division was purple, brown, and black all together.
Yeah.
So I had to go, you know, like pretty much on the black belt division. And I remember in this tournament, all my matches, all the girls that I fought, they were all brown belts. I had 4 matches like for the tournament, all brown belts. In 2002, and then 2004, 2003, 2004 was the first year as that I competed as a black belt. So it was a big responsibility, because now I was like on the other side, on the other end. When you're purple belt, I was like, man, that's it. I don't care. Like, you know, get black belt, brown belt, come, I want. But then when you're on the other side, right, as a brown belt, I was like, oh man, if I lose to a purple belt, then it'll be like, I don't know, right? But then when you're a black belt, you're like, okay, so this is the real test. Like now, you know, like you're going to really put to the proof, which is like, you know, it doesn't matter. Like if you like lose to someone, like, you know, a blue belt, it's the day. It doesn't mean like, you know, like the person is better than you overall. But, you know, this is like a big subject. But at the time, like, you know, in 2004, so I think like that was like in the gi, like the biggest one, just because it was my first year competing as a black belt, you know, amongst like the other people, like all purple, brown before, and being able to win. And that was like the first time I competed against Leca Vieira, which it was like my, you know, like a biggest name in the women's division ever. Like Leca was like a, you know, like a rebel in the sport. Like when she used to compete, was like, you know, fight, she would like, you know, it was like a show. And I was like so scared of her because she was like so aggressive, and like the way she talks, she like didn't care. But it's kind of like, you know, I put her as like, you know, my like as a role model, like someone that I admire, because she had like a very good jiu-jitsu. She was very tough, and there was like not you know, many women like her at the time. So she really like a kind of like open everyone's mind for open everyone's eyes for the women's division, and just to be able to fight against her. And like my first professor, he said like, you know, one day you'll be able to fight against Leca, and I know you can do good against her. And I said like, oh really, Master, do you think so? He's like, I'm sure. So you know, it was like the big name. And when I won the division, was kind of like, you know, again, okay, now I really feel as a black belt, accomplished as a black belt. So
that
was like the two biggest moments in my career for sure.
Yeah, cool. So If you were, so let's just hypothetical question here. If I was to put on a quintet tournament, and I said that you've got to be the captain of one team, and you can pick 4 other girls from any era, who would they be?
In that
in any division or like a specific division?
That can be anything. It's just
any division, any year.
Oh, good. So I would pick Michelle Nicolini for sure.
Yeah.
Michelle. I would pick, let's see, someone from like the good match that I had. From this like a new generation, I would get from this new generation, I would get like a Nachieli. She's like has a good guard.
Yep.
So let's see. It's so hard, man. Like now I'm thinking, like it's like I'm trying to like think like about the best teams. Like, oh man, like I'm leaving this person out. Wow. Maybe like Gabi Garcia, just to bring like the power, a little bit of like, to the division. So 4 people you said. So we have already. Yes, I said
Michelle
Nicolini, Gabi, Nachieli. Now I need like someone. Leticia Ribeiro. I'll get Leticia. 2 little ones, 2 like a big ones. Like just you have like a good balance on the team.
That's a decent team you've got there.
Nice.
Yeah, I could get like a Bia Mesquita too, though, right? You see, now I have like a starting to get too many options.
Yeah, that's cool.
Go Cuba.
So, like, growing up, did you have any idols? I know you started jiu-jitsu at 18, but did you have any idols growing up? Because you said you did a lot of sports and push yourself in sport, or even an idol in general in jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, so for me, like the person, let's say, because we didn't have like many women, and today we have like so many people that you could just look and, oh, okay, I want you, like, kind of like I have this person as my guide for like, for what I do. But at the time, because we didn't have like many women competing, so I didn't have like many people that would look like on the men's division. I always like to watch jiu-jitsu in general, but I didn't have anyone like in particular that I because I'm a type of person that I look beyond just like the belt, just beyond the color of the belt, and just beyond like titles. Because for me, like you can be the best black belt, like you have like a lot of world titles, but if you're a bad person, or if you like if you're not like doing something that I think it's okay, so I'm not going to to root for you, or like it's like you're there, I'm here, so I don't like I don't want to idolize people just because like we all have flaws, but I do have like a person that inspired me a lot. And he's not even like he's my professor. We used to be like together, husband and wife, but we are now friends, but we still have like a very good relationship. And I consider him as like one of my mentors in jiu-jitsu, in life, and just like his story in jiu-jitsu. So I think like for me as a person that I would like, let's say, that inspired me to be a better person and to be better in jiu-jitsu and to not take any obstacles, like to try to overcome the obstacles. I would just like tell this story really quick. So as like when he was on his prime of his competitions, like 20 years old, he got a very rare disease. So he got like a bone tuberculosis on his back, and he was like on the prime of his competitions, like a brown belt, really like competing a lot. And he got this disease, and pretty much like the doctor that like was taking care of him told that he could like overall he had a 20% chance of like walking again.
Wow.
And when you're 20-year-old man, on your prime,
Yeah.
and you hear something like this, I would not, I don't know how I would react, So, and for him, like, he came back, and this guy, the same guy who was my professor, was the same guy who introduced me to him. And this guy, when he was like, depressed because now he didn't know how his life would be after the surgery, like not being able, not being able to know if he's going to be able to do jiu-jitsu again, right? Or even ride his motorcycle. He had a motorcycle and he loved riding his motorcycle. So not having this, like, not knowing if he's going to be able to walk again or even like be able to do jiu-jitsu. So he was kind of like, very depressed. And this guy who introduced us, he told him like, André, now is the time for you to see jiu-jitsu with different eyes. Now is the time for you to study jiu-jitsu in a different way. And you know what this guy did? And that's why I'm like saying, like, for me, like, he's like a person that I admire just because he took his skill to the next level. And when I started, like, I decided to take, like, to go under his guidance. My professor used to, like, have like a problem with his professor, like, because we were in the same neighborhood. So I didn't want to train with him, but then I ended up with him because my professor said, Hannette, I have a guy, he will take you where you want to go. You want to be a world champion? This guy is going to take you there. And then when I asked who was, and he's like, this is the guy, André. And I said, like, but Mestre, my professor, he doesn't like his professor. How is it going to be? He's like, Hannette, this guy is completely different than his professor. He's going to take you. I'm sure he's going to take you where you need to go. And when I went to his school, he was like a very professional, like from the beginning to the end. Never treat me like, like being a woman with, like, because we have like a lot of complaints that women being treated different. I never had any problem. So I'm very blessed to have, like, I'm fortunate to, like, being like in a place where they value, like, they value myself, like, even being a woman, it didn't matter.
Yep.
And the reason why I admire this guy is because, he had all the reasons to give up, like, to not do jiu-jitsu anymore. And he took his skills to the next level. So I said, for me, I had like the will. I wanted to be the best. I need the direction. He was the one who gave me the direction, so the way I see, like, it's like, this is like the person who, like, really, like, made me the person I am today. So if I have to say I have an idol in jiu-jitsu, it would be him, just because, like from the beginning, he was like the person who inspired me to be like the best as I could be, even like having any limitation, like there's no limitations when you're like, you put your mind through it. So
that's so good. What we'll do is we'll skip down to, we had so many questions to ask you, but
oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I talked too much.
No, don't be sorry. I love podcasts like this where it's just,
it's better.
You're so good to listen to. So we might have to get you back again.
Oh, that's good. I accept the offer. I accept.
So we'll get down to these last few. What we do is we have like a couple of quick questions and then a little curly question to finish with. So, favorite submission?
Favorite submission, armbar.
Cool. Favorite movie?
Favorite? Ooh. Oh man. Indiana Jones.
Oh really?
I love Indiana Jones movies, man.
That's so good.
Oh my god. I watched like, I think like 20 times plus. Crazy.
Do you have a favorite guard?
A favorite guard?
Yeah.
Closed guard. And half. I would say like, maybe like I'm half and a half with both.
Yep. Gi or no gi?
Gi.
Nice. Right, our last little curly question then. Tell us something that people would be surprised to know or learn about Hannette Staack.
Okay, one thing that I love, heavy metal.
Yes.
Yeah.
So do I. Who's your favorite band?
Well, I have like a couple. I used to listen like a lot of like, you know, like back in the days, like a Pantera, old school.
Yes.
Pantera was like, I actually went to a Pantera show in Brazil. They had a show in Brazil. I went to a show in Brazil. That was so much fun. But I had like a, you know, I have a couple ones. There's a couple ones from Brazil. I don't know if you like have ever heard Angra. Maybe Angra
No.
was like a kind of like a Sepultura from Brazil
Sepultura.
too.
Yeah.
Sepultura is nice. I love Sepultura, man. Yeah, so Metallica is like a more kind of like they slow down a little bit, like, you know, they kind of like get a little softer over the years. Iron Maiden is a good one too. I love Iron Maiden.
Look,
Yeah,
you've
so I have a
just
couple.
right up to the top
Yeah.
of the Jiu-Jitsu favorite people now.
Nice.
Now that's it from us then. We don't want to keep you any longer. We've got for an hour. So we really appreciate you giving us the time to come and chat to us. It's really, we're so in awe of people like yourself that have done all this, and you're still so passionate for the art. I love seeing that. And
very humble, you know.
yeah, humble. And
Thank you.
And you're so good to talk to. Like, I could sit here for hours and just listen to you tell stories. It's great.
Thank you, Sai. I love talking, man.
We'll definitely have to get you back on again. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And if you ever, once all this craziness is done, if you come to Australia, we'd be more than happy to.
Definitely. Oh my God, that's a place, you know, like I really want to go like a someday.
Yeah,
definitely
cool.
After the pandemic, I'm going to plan.
Yeah,
and I'm visiting you guys for sure.
That'd be great. And then, yeah, hopefully when we come back, because we normally come over for the Worlds and stuff, we might have to
Yes.
to Chicago.
And you guys have to come visit Chicago. Good food. You know, come in the summertime. You know, like don't come in the wintertime. No, I don't recommend. I brought my mom last year for like the winter time. So she came in February, like January to February, and she got the polar vortex here. So it was like a minus 55.
Oh.
And she was like, oh my God, I never experienced so much like this. I told people in Brazil, they never believed me.
Yeah,
I was like,
that would have hurt. From Brazil
right.
to 55.
Exactly. First time seeing snow, she got like all the, you know, all the experience at once.
Yeah.
The best cold, like the snow, everything it was.
What's the weather like in summer? Like, how hot does it get?
Oh, like today was like 30, 31. Yeah, but it gets really hot here. Like in Fahrenheit, it's like a 90. Today was like a 90 something here. So it gets really hot and humid here in Chicago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we've never been to Chicago. We always just normally go to LA, San Diego, Vegas. And
yeah,
stuff.
but you know, it's a beautiful city to visit. Yes, yes.
And
I had a great time as well. Look, thank you so much for like this time. And Cooper, thank you for inviting me. You know, like looking forward to talking to you guys again, and that was a great conversation, man.
No, thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, great to meet you.
It's a lot of fun.
Yes, yes. Thank you. We
Alrighty.
keep in touch now.
We will do for sure.
For sure.
Thanks, Hannette.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.